Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar on the how to use HEROS for Part 58 partners. My name is Ben Sturm and I work with the Cloudburst Group. We are joined today by Lauren McNamara, Lauren Hayes, Liz Cepeda, and Sean Joyner of HUD's Office of Environment and Energy. Before we get started, I would like to share a couple of housekeeping notes regarding today's session. This webinar is scheduled for 90 minutes. However, there is a chance that the session could run longer if needed. We are also experiencing a large number of you in attendance, so all lines are muted. This session will be recorded, and the recording and PowerPoint slides will be made available on HUD Exchange within the following week. If you look at your WebEx control panel on either the right-hand side of your screen or at the top of your screen, please take note of the following. Computer audio. If you would like to change your audio settings from phone to computer, please be sure to click on the Quick Start menu on the top left of your WebEx screen, and then go to the Audio Conference section. Switch the selection from phone to computer audio. The chat pod, by default, is set to host. Please use the drop-down arrow to select Presenter Panelist Host option. In addition, the Q&A pod is, by default, not selected. So please locate this icon. It has a question mark and says Q&A. It will be either at the top of your screen or on the right, top right corner of your screen. If you click that icon, the pod will populate underneath the chat pod. All questions should be submitted through the question pod. Questions will be answered verbally, and any questions that we cannot get to today, please submit those questions through HUD Exchange Ask a Question for environmental reviews. And in addition, we will be stopping throughout today's session to answer questions that are submitted through the Q&A pod. So please submit your questions as you're thinking about them, and we'll respond to them when appropriate. If you are having technical issues related to audio or screen sharing or anything regarding WebEx, please also submit those questions through the Q&A pod on the control panel. I would now like to turn today's presentation over to Lauren McNamara.
Great, thank you, Ben. So first, welcome everyone. We're going to be covering how partner users work with responsible entities for Part 58 reviews in HEROS. And to kick it off, I just want to ask you guys two quick poll questions to get an understanding of your experience with HEROS and what type of partner user you are. So I'm going to open a poll question, and hopefully this works. So our first question is, have you worked on a review in HEROS? All right, we'll give people a few more seconds to answer this. Okay, so it looks like based on the responses that most of you have not yet worked on review in HEROS, while about a third of you have already worked on reviews in this system. All right, let me close this question and I'll open up our next question. Give me a second. Sorry, it's just taking a second to close this poll question. Okay. All right, okay, so I think I closed that. And now All right, one more second and I'll open up the second poll question. Sorry, I thought this would be a little quicker, but thank you for... All right, okay. So now we're going to open up our second poll question, and this question is, what kind of partner are you? Are you a partner who's been hired by a grantee to work on environmental reviews, or are you a partner who's a non-RE recipient, such as a public housing authority or SHOP grantee? So I'm going to open that poll question now. Okay, so based on the responses that we have in, it looks like it's almost a 50-50 split between a consultant hired by a grantee to work on a Part 58 environmental review or a PHA or SHOP grantee, a non-RE recipient. Let me close this poll and we'll get underway with the presentation. And let's just give a second for this to close. Sorry, on my end, I just see a blue spinning circle when I try and close this, so just bear with me, and luckily we don't have any more polling questions. We'll just be going through the presentation. All right, so it should close in about 15 seconds. So thank you for all of you who responded to the poll question. Sorry, that was a little bit slower than anticipated, but it does give me a general idea of you guys as an audience with your experience with the system, as well as the type of partner user that you are. All right, so as I mentioned before, this webinar will cover how partner users work with responsible entities, or REs, under Part 58 in HEROS. So partner users, welcome to the party. Today we'll be covering the following. We'll be giving an overview of HEROS, and we'll discuss the partner user role in more detail. Then we'll have a demonstration of some HEROS screens, and specifically some laws and authority screens. We'll walk through how a partner user would complete those. And finally, we'll talk about the resources we have for HEROS users, and we'll open the webinar up for questions at the end. Okay, so first we're jumping into the HEROS overview. So HEROS is an enterprise system that walks users through the entire environmental review process from beginning to end, and it replaces the old paper-based system and moves the environmental review process into the 21st century. Why in the world would you want to use HEROS? It makes complying with environmental review easier because it includes guidance and prompts on what's needed throughout the system. It facilitates communication. There's no more need to email large documents or use Dropbox to transfer files. Documents can be uploaded directly into HEROS and shared between parties. HEROS also streamlines the process by generating an electronic environmental review record that you can save locally. And the 7015-15, 7015-16 process can be completed via HEROS. There's no more waiting for the mail to reach the HUD office or the mail from the HUD office to reach your office. And finally, HEROS will be required eventually. We're looking at sometime in late 2019. So who uses HEROS? HEROS opened for use in 2014 to responsible entity staff for voluntary use and for HUD staff for mandatory use. We made some changes to the system in late 2017 that allow for partners. Partners would be non-responsible entity recipients and consultants who work with REs and HUD to work in the system. We started rolling out to partner users regionally in August 2018. So here's our general timeline. Regions 8, 9, and 3 had their initial push. Region 4 will be starting soon, most likely after the holidays, and go into January. So if you work with a responsible entity, you'll have to wait for the region that the RE is located in to roll out. We're doing a rollout regionally just to make sure we can handle all the user access requests that we have coming in, and we can process them as we see fit and in our time restraints. Okay. So how does the rollout process work? HUD will invite REs regionally to sign up, and at the same time we invite REs to sign up, we're inviting their partners to sign up this time. A partner user can only sign up if the RE has registered users in HEROS. So if you're working with an RE, that RE needs to have access to the system. You can both sign up at the same time, but you need to coordinate and make sure that if you are signing up, your RE already has access. So partners can sign up to work with multiple REs. We know that some consultants don't just work with one RE, they work with multiple REs. So if you're signing up for multiple REs, you can let us know. When you're signing up, we have a Google Access form. So when we do send a push to sign up, you'll receive an online access form link, and this will prompt you to provide information and contact information, basic information that we need to set up your profile and to understand who you'll be working with in the system. If there's any missing information, we will contact you via email to follow up on information that we need or if something is not clear. And once your access has been processed, you will receive a welcome email. Something to note here is that with any rollout, there is a big increase in the number of access requests that we're receiving. So this can take several weeks. So once you submit your request in the online form, you won't have access to HEROS until you receive the welcome email. So partner users who work for consultants are tied to their organization. So they are an individual user and they're under their partner organization. They can work with multiple responsible entities. For example, this partner user is tied to Fairfax County and the City of Alexandria. And they can also be tied for HUD if they work on Part 50 reviews. When partner users have work with multiple responsible entities or HUD, when they log into the system, they'll have to select who they are working with when they're in HEROS. So if you're working on a review for Fairfax County, when you log in, you'll have to select Fairfax County. And then if you're logging in to work on a review that's under the City of Alexandria, you'll have to log in and select that you're working on Alexandria. For partner users who are non-RE recipients, such as PHAs or shop grantees, you can sign up and be associated with a responsible entity or HUD. So like the consultant, if you're assigned to more than one RE, if you're working with a state or if you're working with a city or a county or HUD, you can select the responsible entity that you're working on a review for. So let's say we have an example where a consultant is hired by a non-RE recipient, such as a PHA, to help prepare the environmental review. The consultant partner and a non-RE recipient partner can work together on this review under the umbrella of the responsible entity. Both users will have to be associated with the responsible entity, and they'll be able to share the review between themselves and the responsible entity. So for Part 58, there are generally 3 user roles. There's a partner who assists with the preparation of the review for the RE. There's a responsible entity who performs the Part 50 review, completes the analysis, and final determination. And finally, there's HUD. HUD is involved with the approving of the authority to use grant funds, the 7015-16. Throughout this webinar, anything that can be completed by a partner user, I will highlight in navy blue. Whatever can be completed by the responsible entity user, I will highlight in green, and anything that can be completed by HUD will be highlighted in yellow. So here's the example process with a partner and responsible entity. So the first two boxes are Navy, so this is a partner user. The partner user can initiate the review, enter project information, and conduct initial analysis. They can upload maps and other documents to the system. Then the next step would be that the partner user submits the review to the responsible entity. The next step is the RE user completes the compliance requirements, makes findings and determinations. At this step, if there's any missing information or something needs to be sent back to the partner user, the RE can always send the review back to the partner user using the assign review feature, which I will discuss in a little bit. So the RE user finalizes everything and submits the request for release of funds to HUD, and then HUD completes the authority to use grant funds. So now we're just going to go through a general demonstration. This will be the largest chunk of our presentation. So if you have any questions that come up for any specific laws and authorities, definitely type them into the Q&A pod as we're working through this, and we'll try to answer them at the end. All right. So here's a high-level representation of the environmental review process. You start with defining a project, then you determine your level of review. You perform the analysis. This is compliance with the laws and authorities and environmental assessment analysis. You finalize the review, and this includes public notification and the 7015-15 and 7015-16 process. And then you have post-review consideration. So if you've identified any mitigation measures that need to be addressed as part of the analysis, you can follow up with the completed mitigation measures in HEROS once the review is complete. So everything is maintained in the environmental review record that's generated from HEROS. So here's the HEROS login. As a partner user, you will receive a BID and an initial password in your welcome email. If you have any issues logging in, you can contact the help desk. Their phone number is on the bottom of this screen. One thing to note is you will need to remember the 5-digit PIN that you gave us when you registered for access. It is a strange number of numbers to ask for, but be sure that you know your 5-digit PIN when calling for a password reset. If you forget your PIN, you can always reach out to us via Ask a Question. If you have any issues logging in that can't be addressed by the help desk, you can submit a question using Ask a Question on the HUD Exchange. And when you do that, please be sure to provide your user ID so we can make sure that you're in the system and try and address your issue. All right, so before we jump into working on a review, I'm just going to show you some tips for working in HEROS. Tip 1 is save your work often. Due to HUD security system requirements, we have inactivity timeouts. So if you're inactive in HEROS for 20 minutes, you'll receive a pop-up letting you know that you're going to be logged out. So one thing to note is that if you're typing on the screen, this is not considered being active. You need to actually hit the save buttons or move between screens to save the information and be active in the system. Next, we have text tips. So anytime you see a tiny little blue circle with a white eye in it, that is a text tip. So if you click on the text tip, you will receive a pop-up with some more information to explain what we're trying to get to in the environmental review. So here for project name, if you click the text tip, it just says, choose a name for your project that will allow you and others involved to identify it easily. Try to choose a name that is unique to this project, and note there is a 60-character limit. So this is just kind of prompts that we have throughout the system to help you answer questions. Next, we have our side menu. After completing the initial screen, a side menu will appear on the left side of your screen. So this side menu will expand during the whole environmental review process. So after you determine your level of review, the side menu will expand to show all the screens that you will be able to access as part of that environmental review. All right, so when you log in, you're going to be taken to the HEROS dashboard. While on the HEROS dashboard, you will see reviews that are currently assigned to you or reviews that you have started or are currently working on. So from here, if you were working on a tiered review, which is a little different than a standard review, you would click on Go to Tiered Reviews, and this would take you to a separate tiered review dashboard. This tiered review dashboard is a little different because it does allow you to upload site-specific reviews to your tiered review. So if you're working on a tiered review, be sure to go to the tiered review dashboard. And we have more information on tiered reviews on our HUD Exchange website, and we do have a webinar that goes into more detail about tiered reviews in HEROS. So to start a review, you're just going to click Start a New Environmental Review. Then the next screen you'll come up to is the review type. So since you are completing a review under Part 58, you'll select Part 58. If you were working under Part 50, you'd be able to select Part 50. Okay. So this is the initial screen in HEROS. This is where a partner user will enter basic project information. So as I mentioned before, as we walk through these slides, anything that can be completed by the partner will be highlighted in navy, and anything that can be completed by the RE will be highlighted in green. For the initial screen, you'll need to complete this screen and save it to initiate the review in the system. If there's any information that a partner user is unsure of, you can enter a placeholder and notify the responsible entity. Anything on this screen with a red asterisk is required to be entered to save the screen. So here on the partner screen, you'll enter the project name. You'll enter the grant information. So this might not be something you have readily available, but you can enter a placeholder and let the responsible entity user know that they need to update that information. You will also enter the total HUD funded amount and the estimated project cost, the total cost of the project. And then you'll answer a yes or no question about if the project anticipates the use of other funds or assistance from another federal agency in assistance to HUD. So once the partner user completes this information, the responsible entity user will go back through this information, make sure it's correct, and work through the review. A little further down on the initial screen, we have responsible entity information. This auto-populates from the system, so here we have Alexandria. So a partner user will enter their RE preparer information and certifying officer name. And under grant recipient or consultant information, they will be able to enter a drop-down box and select the type of the partner that they are. So if they're a non-RE recipient, they'll be able under grant recipient information to find their name and select it and then enter their name. Or if they're a consultant, they'll be able to search for their consulting firm name and then enter it. So these are based on the organizations that are tied to the responsible entity. And then the partner user will click Save and Continue. And once again, the RE user will come through the screen and do the final check and make sure everything is correct as part of their analysis. All right, so now we're on the project summary screen. So on the project summary screen, a partner user can enter their project description and project location information. After submitting this information, the RE will go through and make sure this is correct and make any edits as necessary. A little further down on the project summary screen, there are questions about the project activities. So there are what type of activities are involved in this project, will the project require a change in land use, and what's the planned final use of the project. So you'll respond to these questions as a partner user and save the screen, and then the responsible entity user can come back and make sure this is correct. Note that if any of these selections are changed on this screen and you use the level review determination assistant that I will discuss in a few minutes, your level review might change, so just be sure to go through the level review determination assistant again if you're changing any of these activities on the screen. Okay. So here's the level of review. As a partner user, you'll be able to select an advisory level of review, and the RE will confirm that this is the correct level of review. You should be talking outside of the system to make sure you're both on the same page as to what's required if it's a categorically excluded subject to review or an environmental assessment, but the partner user makes a an advisory level of review. And then as you scroll down the level of review screen, you have all the options. If you're doing a categorically excluded subject to you would select the citations that are involved. But if you're unsure of the level of review, you can click Not Sure at the bottom of the screen and continue to the Level of Review Determination Assistant, also known as LORDA. So here's LORDA. So based on the activities that you selected on the project summary screen, you'll be prompted with anywhere from 1 to 4 questions about your project activities. And then HEROS will recommend a level of review based on your selection. And here, a partner user will be asked to confirm the level of review. So once the level of review is determined, you'll get to kind of the nuts and bolts of HEROS, the related laws and authorities, and how to walk through compliance with all of them. So as a partner user, you cannot legally complete the full analysis and compliance steps for the laws and authorities, but you can make suggestions and initial analysis to the RE to make their final determination. To ensure that an RE reviews each of the law and authority screens, partner users may not reply to the final question on each screen, which is, are formal compliance steps or mitigation required? A special note with the last bullet, if HUD were to come and monitor the responsible entity later and saw that none of the yes and no questions were answered, it would be kind of a red flag to let HUD know that the RE hasn't reviewed the information submitted by the partner. So with the yes-no questions, partners do need to walk through the screens to upload information to provide to the responsible entity. So you do need to kind of answer the initial questions and some of the analysis, but you should be working with the responsible entities and making suggestions. And then any text boxes that come up or compliance determinations, you need to explain what's going on and be explicit that these are advisory responses, and then the RE will complete the screen using the partner user's feedback. One thing to note is if you want to familiarize yourself with the process flow of the laws and authorities in the partner work if you want to familiarize yourself with the process and flow of the law and authority screens, we have our partner worksheets on the HUD Exchange that walk through the same logic as HEROS. So if you don't have access to HEROS yet and you kind of want to see how things are working in the system, you can look at these Word documents that mimic the HEROS screen. All right. So based on the level of review, you'll be taken to the Laws and Authorities screen. And depending on your level of review, this screen will have either 3 laws and authorities or 16 laws and authorities. As partner users, you will be able to populate the compliance determination on the laws and authorities screen. However, you will not be able to answer the middle column, which is our formal compliance steps or mitigation required. Only an RE user can answer that question. So I'm going to walk through a few of the trickier laws and authorities and show you as a partner user how you can prep the screen and how an RE user will come in and finalize the screen. Alright, so first we're going to cover floodplain management. Partner users can create the flood insurance rate map, be sure to mark the site on the map, and make preliminary suggestions as to if the project meets any of the exceptions at 5512. If an 8-step or 5-step process is required, you'll need to work with the responsible entity because there is an alternative analysis as part of that, and public notification is required. So anything that you're working on in floodplains, if you're going to impact a floodplain, definitely involve your RE early. You should be talking about these and working these out outside the system, and then once things are finalized, working through the system as a partner user to pass off to the responsible entity user to finalize. So here's what the floodplain management screen looks like. So for the first question, for this example, we're going to select that this project does not meet any of the exceptions. The second question prompts users to upload a flood insurance rate map and respond to the question of, is this project located in a floodplain, yes or no? If yes, what type of floodplain is it located in? The next will be the 8-step process. For this one, we're going to say an 8-step process is required. So the partner user is definitely going to be working with the responsible entity because they are going to be impacting. And floodplain, and they do need to work on an 8-step analysis. The partner user can complete the mitigation portion of the screen. They can select the type of mitigation measures that have been identified in the 8-step process, and they can also add notes to the partner, based on conversations that they've had with the 8-step process, their recommendations. But the responsible entity user will come in and finalize this information. So finally, at the screen summary, HEROS generates a compliance determination, and the partner user can edit the compliance determination and include notes for the RE user. The partner user can also upload supporting documentation onto the screen. And then the RE user will have to come in and finalize the compliance determination and finally answer the yes or no question at the bottom. Our formal compliance steps or mitigation required. So next we're going to walk through wetlands. So for wetlands protection, if a project involves ground disturbance and it's determined that there is a wetland on site, the partner will have to work with the RE to determine if consultation with Fish and Wildlife Service is needed for a wetland delineation, and then if an 8-step is required, coordinate with the RE just like you would coordinate with the RE for the 8-step process for floodplains. So here's the wetland screen. Under the first question, we're selecting yes, that the project does involve new construction, expansion of a building's footprint, or ground disturbance. And then under the second question, we're going to select that there is a wetland that might be impacted. For question 3, the partner can provide notes to the RE on mitigation measures that will be taken to limit the impact on wetlands and make selections to the type of mitigation measures that can be completed. After submitting the review to the RE will finalize the analysis on this screen. Finally, at the screen summary, the partner user will edit the compliance determination and provide notes to the RE user and upload documentation. The RE user will finalize the compliance determination and answer the final question on the screen. Our formal compliance steps or mitigation required. Endangered species. So a general note about endangered species, partner users should not contact the Fish and Wildlife Service or NOAA Fisheries. They should coordinate with the responsible entity for any consultation for endangered species. So here's the endangered species screen. As a walkthrough on this screen, on the first question, does the project involve any activities that have the potential to affect the species or habitat? Well, we're going to select yes. So that will take us to question 2. As you notice, question 2 has 2 text tips to define critical habitat and action areas. Under question 2, we'll select yes, there are federally listed species or critical habitat present in the action area. Under question 3, we're going to respond that there is no effect based on the specifics of both the project and any federally listed species in the action area. Under question 6, the partner is going to recommend that mitigation is not necessary and why, and this is based on coordination with the responsible entity outside the system. And finally, when the responsible entity user enters the system, they can finalize this information and analysis. So on the screen summary for endangered species, the partner user will provide the initial compliance determination and upload supporting documentation. And the partner user will come in and finalize the analysis in the compliance determination and answer our formal compliance steps or mitigation required question at the bottom of the screen. All right, so for historic preservation or Section 106, partners should not contact the State Historic Preservation Officer or the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer. This should only be done by the responsible entity. Partners can make preliminary determinations and describe their conclusions and coordinate with the responsible entity, but they should not be initiating consultation. So here's the historic preservation screen. On this screen, under the first question, we're going to say that the Section 106 process is required for this project. And this will open up step 1 of the Section 106 process, which is initiate consultation. So the partner user should be working with the RE outside of the system to work on consultation that the responsible entity will be undertaking. And the partner can work with the RE on identifying who to contact, how to put together letters and consultation documentation for the SHPO, TIPO, and interested parties. So here, the partner can enter, they can provide a summary of how the consulted partners were selected, consulting parties were selected. And then when the RE user comes in to finalize the analysis, they can update the information in the text box. Now, under step 2, identify and evaluate historic properties. The partner user will work with the RE to identify these properties, which they can then provide additional notes to the partners in the system, but they should be talking outside of the system to make sure everything is on the same page. And when the RE user enters the system, they will finalize the analysis. Under step 3, assess the effects of the project on historic properties. The partner user here will select no adverse effects and enter information for documenting that finding. They should, be on the same page as the responsible entity at this point since consultation has been going on. And finally, when the RE user enters the system, they will finalize any of this analysis. And now at the screen summary for historic preservation, the partner user can edit the compliance determination and upload documents. And with all the laws and authorities, the RE user will finalize the analysis and edit the compliance determination and answer the final question on the bottom of the screen, are formal compliance steps or mitigation required? The next is the environmental assessment analysis. So this is basically how the environmental assessment chart works, but it's in the system. Partner users will be able to select the impact code in the second column and then enter their impact evaluation in the third column, and if any mitigation is required, they can enter it there. And as with the other screens, the RE user will come into the screen and finalize any analysis before making their final determinations. So here's some just general guidance that we have throughout HEROS. So all HEROS screens for laws and authorities link back to the HUD Exchange, where you can find more information and resources on a specific law and authority. This includes links to the agency that would have a mapping system that can help with the analysis. For farmland, you would be working with USDA. So we have links to where you can get source documentation and how to work through the process. We also have guidance for environmental assessments, where we walk through guidance on how to meet the environmental assessment factors. Okay, so now I'm just going to talk quickly about mitigation measures. So mitigation measures are recorded on the Laws and Authorities screen as the user is prompted to add mitigation measures and text summaries and text boxes. Once on this screen, if any information needs to be edited, a user can click on the name of the law and authority in the left-hand column and be taken back to the screen to make edits. If you need to add a mitigation measure, you can click Add a Mitigation Measure and it will add to the chart. So partner users make the initial mitigation measure suggestion, and then once the analysis is completed by the RE user, they will update the mitigation measure, and then they'll also add information about the mitigation plan. So once a partner user kind of finishes their initial analysis and provides documentation to the RE in the review, they'll hit kind of their final endpoint where they'll have to pass the review on to the responsible entity to finalize. So on the Prepare Notification screen, a partner user can generate an environmental review record from the system, and they can also assign the review to their person that they're working with at the RE to finalize. So I'm going to show you how the Assign Review feature works, but first I'm going to quickly show you what the environmental review record generated from HEROS looks like. So here's the ERR document. This includes all of the text that has been entered in text boxes, questions that have been answered, and documents that have been uploaded or hyperlinked here. The first few pages mimic the initial and project summary screen. Then we have the laws and authorities chart. And finally, we have the appendix. And the appendix shows how the questions and text boxes were responded to on each of the laws and authorities screens, and also includes hyperlinks to the documentation that was uploaded. So when you generate this, you might just want to save a local copy for yourself if you want to email it to the RE so they can see everything in the Word document, and then click through HEROS to answer their end and finish their analysis. So assigning the review. On the Assign Review screen, you'll select the name of the person at the RE who will work on the review next. You can use the search at the top of the screen. You will only be able to assign a review to users associated with the responsible entity. So if you were a consultant and you were working with a PHA, you'd be able to assign it to the person at the PHA, or if you needed to assign it to the RE, you can assign it to the RE. Or if you needed to assign it back to each other, you can also do that. So at the very top of the screen, you'll be able to search. And then under the first box, you'll see the search results. And be sure to highlight the person's name in gray before you click Assign. One thing to note is that once a user has been assigned a review, they will show in the second kind of search result box as being a person who has previously worked on the review. So that makes it a little easier to assign it to a person that has already worked on the review. So when you need to make sure the person's name is highlighted in gray before you click Assign. And one thing to note is you can enter comments into the text box. The text entered into this text box will only appear in the system-generated email. And as I mentioned before, this just highlights the area where people who have previously been assigned a review will appear. So here's the confirmation email. So both the user who assigned a review and the person who is getting assigned a review will receive a copy of this email from heros-no-reply@hud.gov. So the system-generated email will include the project name and the name of the person who assigned you the review. So once the review is assigned to the second user can use the hyperlink dashboard to log into HEROS. And when they log into, when they log into HEROS, the review will show in their dashboard. Now, just to make a special note, if it's a tiered review, you will have to go to the tiered review dashboard to see the review that is assigned to you if it's a tiered review. So for finalizing a review, the RE submits the request for release of funds and certification. Here's a quick screenshot of the screen. A paper signed copy of the 7015-15 can be uploaded by an RE user. And when there's a Part 3 signature on the ROF, the RE user can enter the date that it was signed and upload the document. In order to submit the request for release of funds to HUD, the review needs to be assigned to a person at the local HUD field office to finalize the processing. So on the HUD end, this is yellow because HUD is going to do it. After the objection period, HUD approves the 7015-16, so they'll respond to questions on the screen. And then they'll finalize the question, all objections if received have been considered, and they'll enter their name and date. And once the review is finalized, HUD will assign the review to the last person at the responsible entity who assigned the review to HUD. That user will receive a system-generated email. So what does this look like? So this is the same as the environmental review record that I showed you before. But one thing that I want to note is that the 7015-15 and 7015-16 show as dates on the environmental review record. And the uploaded ROF and publication will be hyperlinked here. So there will no longer be an authority to use grant funds form issued by HUD. It is the HEROS screen mimics the form, but the date is entered into the environmental review record. So here's where that is on the environmental review record. It usually shows up on the second or third page, depending on the length of the project description. And then once again, here are the laws and authorities. and finally the appendix that shows the laws and authorities and how they were responded to within the system. So reviews are posted on the HUD Exchange during their public comment periods, and they're also archived on the HUD Exchange. So if you're doing a review that is not a tiered review, it will be archived on the HUD Exchange for 1 year, and if you're working on a tiered review, it will be archived on the HUD Exchange for 5 years. Reviews will remain in the system indefinitely, but reviews will be public-facing for that period of time. Okay, now we're just going to go into the resources we have available. So here's our training materials, tools, and resources. We have a user guide. We're currently working on updating our user guide to incorporate the partner user role, so that's in progress, so stay tuned. We have how-to videos, and more specifically, we have a how-to video on using HEROS as a partner user. We also have a how-to video on how to assign a review. So we have how-to videos that show specific snippets of the environmental review process in the system. We also have frequently asked questions. We try to update these twice a year. We'll probably take some questions that have been asked during this webinar and incorporate that into our FAQs. We also have ask a question. So if you run into any system issues, whether it be logging into the system or you're working in the system and you receive an error message or something strange is not working, you can use Ask a Question, and this can get you in contact with our contractors to try and sort out the system issue as soon as possible. One thing that's very helpful when using Ask a Question is to include screenshots. Sometimes, these things happen and we're unable to replicate them. So if you have a screenshot, it definitely helps us kind of narrow down what the issue might be. Finally, we have our Q&A webinar. So this webinar, as Ben mentioned, will be posted on the HUD Exchange in the upcoming week or so. And all of these materials are available on the HUD Exchange. And I guess now we'll open it up for questions.
Okay, we've had a couple questions come in, but as a reminder, if you have any, please type them in the question pod now. Our first question is, will there be a link on the HUD Exchange for potential partners to sign up for HEROS after the rollout month?
Sure. So if you are in a region that passed, and let me just go back to the timing. Hold on a second. So if you're in a region where you're working with a responsible entity and the period is passed, you can reach out to HUD to get a link to the access form. Once we've finalized this rollout, so once we finalize the rollout in May 2019, we will post this link on the HUD Exchange. But as we are rolling this out regionally, you'll be invited to do it regionally. So if you're working in a region that has already gone through the process, you can reach out to HUD to get the link. But if you're in a region or state that's a little further down the line, you will have to wait until it opens to sign up.
Okay, next question is, can funding information, including total cost and HUD funded amount, be changed once the project definition is completed?
So as a partner user, you can enter kind of a placeholder if you aren't sure of what the exact project amount is, and the responsible entity user can edit that as they're working on the review and finalizing it. If something did happen where an error was made in the funding amount, you could go back and edit it.
Okay, the next question is, does HEROS allow 2 or more REs to work together on a review of the same project? County, state, and local REs may all be involved in the same project needing review.
Okay, so that's a little trickier. So if one of the entities was taking kind of a lead agency to be the RE, and the other responsible entities were just providing information to that responsible entity, they could work as partners with that RE in the system. So that could be done, but if an RE was working, if multiple REs were working on the same review, if an RE was ahead of the other REs, so if one RE was going to finish sooner than the others, they can, the first responsible entity could finish the review, and then the other two responsible entities could essentially work in the system and as a cooperating agency and put that review in and then go through their public notification. But this is a good question. If you do run into the situation, definitely contact your field environmental officer and we can kind of help walk you through it, just because it's a little tricky and we would want to make sure it was working correctly. So this has come up as a question and we've tried to work this out. So if this does come up, definitely reach out to your FEO and we can sort it out kind of with the system outside of this webinar. It's not really an easy answer.
Okay. Next question, will the environmental review record still need to be made available at a location that is near the proposed project location, or will the public notice direct interested parties to the HUD Exchange to view the ERR?
So the public notice being posted on the HUD Exchange does not change the public notification requirements in Part 58. You will still have to publish or post your notification. You can reference the HUD Exchange as a link for someone to view the environmental review record, but the public notice published or posted is still part of Part 58, and HEROS does not replace that.
Okay, next is, how does a partner user that begins a new environmental review give access to or share with additional partners or members of a firm to work on concurrently?
So you can't work on a review concurrently at the same time. The review can only be worked on by the person who the review is assigned to. And this is to make sure that, you know, if multiple people are working on a review at the same time, multiple people aren't working on the project description at the exact same moment and then nothing saves. So only one person at a time can edit the review. So once a person is working on a review and editing a review, they can work on it. But if someone in their office needs to work on a different part of the review would have to be assigned to that person to work on it. And one thing to note that I didn't mention under the assign review feature is if you accidentally send a review to a person who's out of the office and it needs to be reassigned back to someone to work on, you can use the HUD Exchange to get in contact with us and we can reassign the review for you. But only one person at a time can work in a review.
Okay, I'm going to combine a couple questions. First is, will state programs be using HEROS, and can COC grantees use HEROS?
Okay, so can state programs use HEROS? So if a state is acting as the responsible entity and submitting the request for release of funds to HUD, they can use the system now. If a state is acting as HUD and processing the 701550 that's submitted by a responsible entity, they are not using the system at this time. We have a separate kind of work that we need to do with those state programs. So if you're a state and you're an RE, you can use the system, but if you're a state acting as HUD, you are not using the system right now. And then I believe the next question was for COCs. So if you're a COC and you're working with a responsible entity, yes, you can use the system. And if you're a COC and you're working with HUD, you can also use the system.
Okay, next question is, should large documents such as phase 1, the asbestos and lead inspections, et cetera, be uploaded as part of the ERR?
Yes. So HEROS has been designed to handle very large documents. It was part of our design and system creation to make sure that this system could handle large phase 1s. It is currently handling large phase 1s, so please upload them into the system. If you run into an issue where you're unable to upload a really large document, definitely let us know using Ask a Question. But since 2014, we haven't run into any issues with a phase 1 or document being too large.
Okay, next is, on the historic preservation screen, you say that the RE was supposed to contact SHPO, so our consultant's not supposed to be completing the Section 106 screen.
So if the partner wants to kind of provide documentation on the Section 106 screen, they can provide it, but the responsible entity is doing a consultation. So if the RE and the partner talk outside the system and the RE says, just don't complete that screen, I'll do it all, they can do it all. But if they want the partner user to upload documentation to the screen, partner user can initiate the screen, and then the responsible entity user can finalize it. But with Section 106, the sole consultation is on the responsible entity.
Okay, next is when assigning reviews, can a consultant assign to a fellow colleague first before assigning to the PHA or RE?
Yes, so as long as you are under the same organization and tied to the same responsible entity, you can assign the reviews to each other within the system.
Okay, and then this is related to the rollout for partners. So this says, is June 2019 the time period in which Region 6 must be using HEROS? I assume this is the date when it's rolled out to partners. So is that mandatory for everybody then also?
So this rollout for partner users isn't going to be set in stone. It's not going to say once Region 8 is done, it's mandatory for Region 8. This is just the process of us getting users into the system in these regions. HEROS won't be mandatory until most likely late 2019, so there is several months after this rollout that we will be open for people to sign up. But as we introduce the system to the regions, this is kind of your big push to sign up for this system.
Okay, next question is, will a hard copy be required for the RE to maintain on-site?
So you aren't required to maintain a hard copy, but you should save an environmental review record generated from HEROS on your local drive. So you can save the electronic copy, and that will have hyperlinks to your documentation. So just make sure that you have your electronic copy and then copies of the documents that you upload into the system. The hyperlinks will be live as long as the document is posted on HUD Exchange, or if you're a HEROS user, when you click the hyperlink, it will open document. So no hard copy, you can keep it electronically.
Okay, next question is, do REs doing tiered reviews continue to conduct their site-specific review online and then, or offline and then submit to HEROS? I think is the question.
Okay. Yeah, so with tiering is a little bit more bare bones than the standard environmental review process in HEROS. So for tiered reviews, you develop your tiered review. If you're doing a CEST tiered review, you can kind of build your Tier 1 and your written strategy in the system, but your site-specific reviews are completed outside of the system in a format that you develop. And then if you're doing a tiered review that's an EA, you're just going to complete the tiered EA outside the system, upload it into HEROS, and your site-specific reviews will be done outside the system and then attached to the completed Tier 1 as you move along.
Okay, next question is, can the consultant or partner initiate a new project, or does the RE need to initiate the project?
A consultant or project, a consultant or partner can initiate a new environmental review. You definitely should be talking to the RE before you start review to make sure that they actually need the review, but a consultant and partner can initiate the environmental review before passing it on to the RE. The RE does not have to initiate the review.
Okay, then we've had a couple questions about the registration process, both for partners and for REs, so can you go over that?
Sure. So when HEROS opens up to your region, and if you're in a region that's already been covered, definitely reach out to your regional environmental officer to get this link. But when we are introducing the system to the region through the rollout, responsible entities will receive emails letting them know that this is our second push for you guys to sign up for the system, and at this time you can sign up with your partners. So responsible entities will share this with their partners to sign up. As I said before, the responsible entity needs to have access to HEROS in order for the partner to sign up for HEROS. So, you'll receive this link from your contact at the responsible entity, and then you'll be able to sign up as well as that.
Okay, next question is the grant number or loan number needed to begin an environmental review?
So it is a required field. You can enter a placeholder. You can enter like the number 1, and then when the responsible entity who has more familiarity with their grants that they're working with, when they come in and edit the screen, they can update that information.
Okay, next question is, what if the project description changes during the process? Can the partner make the change?
So if you're still working on the analysis and no final determinations have been made, a partner can work with the RE just to figure out what the project description is, and they can edit the project description on the screen. But if you're kind of working on something that's totally going to change the scope and you have already completed everything, just keep in mind that your project description is how you work through the laws and authorities and the level of review. So if you are changing the project description, keep in mind the impacts that it could have on the analysis.
Okay, this next question isn't directly related to partner users, but decent question. So as they say, I have an environmental review record that started in early 2017 and has stalled. How long do they have to complete the review and submit the request for release of funds?
So if the review's in the system and you're kind of working on a project that is multifaceted, multi-funding sources, kind of, a lot of different players, and it's, stalled and stopped, and, you're kind of at a point where you're picking it up again, you could work on that route. You could continue to use that review. One thing to note is you want to take in mind what you've worked on in 2017. There might be changes. Like flood insurance rate maps change, species list can change. So, be sure if you're going to update this project that you do take a look at the analysis again, and then you can work through it and move it forward.
Okay, then similarly, is there an option for project reevaluation through HEROS?
Yes, there is an option. So once the review is complete, the side menu will show reevaluation. I'm sorry I didn't show that in the side menu before. But if a project needs to be reevaluated, that can be worked through HEROS. Basically, you're going to take into consideration if the scale or scope or if anything has changed, and then document how that has been done.
Okay, next question is there a feature in HEROS to post a comment so that the PHA or RE review consider, for example, a note to tell them they need to input the grant number?
So you can enter in the text box, like you could do asterisk or $ signs or something that kind of calls attention to hey, you need to take a look at this. But for grant number, I think if you just make sure that tell them that they need to update that. You can enter multiple zeros. That would kind of alert someone. But you should just kind of talk to them to make sure that they know. There's no way to add a note in that one, but in the specific text boxes where you're walking through and entering kind of free-form text, you could enter hey, don't forget this into a text box for the partner to be prompted. But in the grant number, you might be able to enter words. I'm not sure. You could probably just say update here. I actually haven't tested that out. That might be doable. I probably should have tested that before this.
Yeah, and I guess I would add, just in general, if you want to add notes in the compliance determination text box, there's always space for that. And if you want to add notes, if you're assigning it to someone else, there's a comment box on the assign screen so the next person that is assigned can see comments.
Great. Thanks, Lauren.
Next question is, if an RE is working under a programmatic agreement for Section 106, how will that work within HEROS?
So for Section 106, if you're working under a programmatic agreement, you'll be able to make that selection on the screen and provide a link to your programmatic agreement and specifically where in a programmatic agreement you're pointing to for that project.
Okay, I feel like we've addressed most of these. Let's see if there's other questions that I've missed. I know we asked if you need to maintain a paper copy of the review. There's also a question, since the EIR is saved on the HUD Exchange, what record retention requirements are there for REs to maintain a copy? Again, that's similar. I think we said you don't need a paper copy, but you should retain an electronic copy of the environmental review record at least.
Yeah.
It looks like we've addressed all the comments so far, or most of them. We've had some questions about access, if you've requested access and how long it takes. At this point, we might be a little behind because we've gotten a lot of new requests in. So we typically say 2 weeks. I think it's been running a little longer in some cases. But if you have a question about your access or you haven't received an email notification yet, you can email herosinfo@hud.gov to follow up. But also keep in mind it's been running a little longer lately.
Okay. I do see a question. We're working as a partner with our local PHA. Our understanding is the RE is the local political jurisdiction where the project occurs. Is this correct, or is the PHA the RE? So it is the jurisdiction. It is the local government. It is not a PHA that's an RE. A PHA would be a partner in HEROS, and a responsible entity is the local government.
Okay, I'm still looking for other questions. We just got a question that says we submitted a 7015-15 in October, and the 7015-16 still isn't showing up in the environmental review record. So maybe a question about what if you don't get your 7015-16 back after the comment period?
Okay, so if you're waiting on a 7015-16 and you haven't received it back from HUD, definitely follow up with them on the phone to see what the issue is. If you want to let us know using Ask a Question, the name of that review and who the review is currently assigned to, we can look into that to see what the issue might be. But if you are waiting for an outstanding 7015-16 from HUD, definitely pick up the phone and make sure that they're aware that it's in their queue. We do send out weekly reminder reports to the CPD field offices to let them know that there are kind of open 7015-15s on their end, but in case something hasn't shown up, definitely call your local contact to see what the issue might be.
Okay, it looks like there's a couple of questions about aggregation and tiered reviews. So one is, do we upload our site-specific reviews to HEROS? And then another question about, can you aggregate projects with multiple locations, and how do you enter multiple locations?
Okay, so for the tiered review question, you can upload your site-specific reviews and attach them to your broad-level Tier 1 review in the system. And you would do that on the tiered review dashboard. There's a special button on there to add site-specific reviews, and when you're in the review, you can do it via the side menu, and you would just enter the project's address and then upload the completed Tier 2 or site-specific review. As for aggregation, that's very project-specific, so you should probably check with your field environmental officer about that.
I would add, if you have multiple addresses, for instance, you can just enter one representative address on the project description screen and then enter the others in the text box there if you do end up aggregating, but I would agree to talk to your field environmental officer. There's a question that says, can the RE assign someone on his or her staff to review the environmental review record? I imagine that's like a HEROS privileges question.
Yes, as long as they have access to the system and they're working under your responsible entity, they can review in the system.
Here's a funny question that I like. What do you do if the partner user has no idea of the environmental review process?
Okay. So if it's a partner user that you're working with, you definitely need to work very closely with them to make sure they understand the requirements of HUD environmental reviews. HEROS will help them. It's supposed to help them. It's supposed to prompt them with questions and, prompts with the type of documentation that's required, but it might take you sitting down with them and explaining the process and how it works. One thing that I would recommend is that you point them to our HUD Exchange website. We have our WISER system, which is the web-based instructional system for environmental reviews. And in that learning management system, we walk through, getting started part 58. We also have modules on specific laws and authorities that include videos on how to, make a flood insurance rate map, how to determine compliance with different laws and authorities, different tools that can be used. So, if you have a partner who needs a lot of help, you're going to have to help them. And we also have resources on our website, and you can also kind of see if it's possible for them to attend a Part 58 training that is made available by our field staff.
Okay, the next question is, how do you show the reviews complete without the authority to use grant funds?
So if you're working on a review, for example, that doesn't require an authority to use grant funds, if you're doing a categorically excluded not subject to review or a categorically excluded subject to review that converts to exempt, once you're kind of worked through the process, you can get to a certain point and you'll be, prompted with, you're done. So when you get to that point, you just select finish and you'll receive a pop-up that says the review is marked complete, and then you can archive it. So if you're working on a review that does require an authority to use grant funds, that review can't be marked complete until you receive the authority to use grant funds.
Okay, we have another question about, let me find it, for existing clearance that runs for 5 years and how this works in HEROS.
I guess I would need a little bit more information. So you have an existing clearance that runs for 5 years. If that's a tiered review, so if you have a tiered review that you completed outside of the system, you don't need to do the tiered review in the system. You can keep doing the site-specific reviews outside the system, but the next time you do a tiered review, you can do it in HEROS and then add the site-specific reviews to the review. Hopefully that's where that question was going.
Okay, the next question is regarding downloading the electronic review record from HEROS. Does that ERR include the supporting documentation that was uploaded with the review?
So the electronic ERR generated from the system does include hyperlinks to the documentation. So when you have that, if you're a HEROS user and you click that link and you're logged into HEROS, it'll open the document in a new window. It's very fancy. If you are kind of outside the system and the review is posted on our website and you are looking at that review, if you click on the hyperlink, that will open the supporting documentation in an Internet Explorer. So your electronic copy does include the links to the uploaded documentation in the review.
Okay, the next question is, how long are completed reviews valid? And at what point do you need to do a new review?
So for that, the general rule of thumb we say is 5 years, but you need to talk to your field environmental officer to understand the whole type of project that you're working with.
Then we've had a couple, I think, follow-up questions about the AUGF. So it says developers need an AUGF to show the NEPA is complete for tax credit applications, for example. How do we show that using HEROS, that the review is complete and you have an AUGF?
All right, hold on. I'm going to pull up the screenshot. Let me just escape. Hold on, I'm scrolling to that screen. So the AUGF is now the date that shows on the environmental review record generated from the system. So in this example, what's shown in the teal box, you have the approval documents that have been uploaded. You have the date the certifying officer certified the 7015-15, and then you have the date the certifying officer approved, the authorizing official approved the 7015-16. So this is what you can provide.
Okay, the next question is, what happens if a review is marked completed but not archived?
You can always go back and archive it.
Okay, next, can regulatory agencies providing comments access HEROS to provide those comments?
No, not at this time. So if you're kind of working with a regulatory agency, if they're going to provide comments on a specific law and authority while you're working on the review, you'll have to kind of do that outside the system. If you are talking about sharing the environmental review record with them during the public notification process, you can direct them to the HUD Exchange where the environmental review record is posted.
Another question about tiered reviews. Are REs doing tiered reviews required to submit a request for release of funds?
So if you have worked on the tiered review outside of HEROS, if you completed your broad level outside of HEROS and you have your request for release of funds, keep doing that outside the system. If you're working on a tiered review in the system, your tier 1, you do need to get your request for release of funds through HEROS.
Okay, I'm not sure I fully understand this one, but I think it's a good question to still talk about kind of your user roles as you log in and completing environmental reviews. So the question says, we complete reviews as an RE. We also work as a partner. Will we need a separate HEROS account for each role? For example, if we're an RE for CDBG, but work as a partner with our local PHA.
So I guess I'm a little confused by that question. So if you're an RE, but you're a partner with the PHA would be your partner. You would still be the RE, and then the partner would be the PHA.
And I think just to talk about user, so I don't know if there would be a situation where you're both an RE and a partner. I think there are situations where you're a partner and you do work for multiple REs, so you wouldn't necessarily be tied just to one RE. So it's important when you log in to select your partner organization and then make sure you select the correct RE that you're tied to. I know Lauren showed that login screen, so just as a reminder.
All right, we have about 5 more minutes. Any more questions, Lauren?
Let's see. We did get a question about the HEROS practice system and how to use that.
Okay, so when you do sign up for access to HEROS, you'll receive a link to the HEROS production site where you can work on actual reviews that are in progress and that you're going to finalize in the system. But we also send you a link for access to our practice environment where you can use the same login credentials and use that environment to kind of poke through the system and see what bells and whistles there are.
Okay, another question about the request release of funds. So after you complete your review and have met the comment period, at what point can you submit the request release of funds, or are you prompted by HEROS when to submit the request release of funds?
So you would still be working under Part 58. You would submit the request for release of funds when your comment period ends. You have to wait a day, and then you can submit to the request for release of funds to HUD. So you're still working under the umbrella of Part 58. HEROS isn't going to prompt you and say, hey, next step, do this now. You still need to make sure you're doing that within the policies and procedures in Part 58.
Okay, I think that's all I'm seeing for now.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for attending. We will kind of take some of your Q&As that you've asked and kind of work on fleshing out our FAQs. This webinar will be archived on the HUD Exchange. If you have any questions, you can use the HUD Exchange Ask a Question environmental review. And then, Ben, I don't know if you have any signing off words of wisdom?
No, I think you basically summed it up. Thank you all for joining today's session. And within the next week, most likely probably early next week, we will have the PowerPoint presentation and a recording of today's webinar available. We will send those items out to all participants via email, and they will also be uploaded to the HUD Exchange to the HEROS webinar training page. And we will provide a link to that page in next week's email as well. And as Lauren indicated, if you have any follow-up questions that pertain to environmental reviews or using HEROS, please submit those questions to the HUD Exchange Ask a Question portal for environmental reviews. The HEROS webinar email should only be used for questions pertaining to logging into webinars. You should not be submitting any HEROS or environmental review questions to that email address. And again, thank you all for joining today's session.